I ranked a couple of controversial bands on this channel already. Venom, Manowar or Cannibal Corpse come to mind. Today it's again about a band you either love or hate, Danzig. The cover presentation is handled by Kisa, all the way from Lithuania, who joined me for the first time. This could have become an extensive ranking if I took into consideration all the side projects like the Elvis album or Black Aria, not to forget earlier bands like Misfits and Sawane. Glenn Danzig is an artist with a huge output over the past decades. But I decided to focus on the main Danzig works to keep it musically in line with releases you can easier compare to each other. A bunch of covers, including Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, ZZ Top, also a few more surprising choices. I don't even know the original for Crying in the Rain, but I've heard the French version called J'irai pleurer sous la pluie. The sound is a bit muffled and certainly not a Rick Rubin production. It seems like a rehearsal room idea to compile this album, and it appears to be a filler between stronger efforts. My summary is, a few tracks are okay, but it's not essential. Admittedly, I may not be the most open-minded reviewer when it comes to heavy metal, thus Black Acid Evil is definitely not my cup of tea. The fifth album by Danzig actually shocked me when it was released. Number 4 had presented a certain experimental edge, adding some industrial sounds, a tinge to make it more modern and keep it interesting. With number 5, industrial totally won over. With all the noise and sound effects, it annihilated the evil Elvis style, which had impressed me on the first 3 albums. Back in the 90s, Black Acid Evil nearly ended my passion for Danzig, but today I understand it as a phase of reorientation. If you survive the mechanical monotony of the A-side, you discover some more interesting musical variety on the B-side. Patient listeners who give it several runs might get into it, but it's demanding. Occasionally, the album develops a great atmosphere, for example, Pyre of Souls, but some of the other songs are rather pedestrian and don't really move me, Black Candy or Death Red Moon, for example. The Revengeful is very repetitive, feels like the chorus is repeated 50 times. None of my favorite albums altogether. I like Kiss the Skull, the Do Me Without Light I Am, and the stripped down Angel Blake, but altogether there are only few songs which would make me prefer this album over the others. Some tracks are downright boring. The groove in Liber Skull, for example, is a typical modern metal thing you feel you heard from 1,000 bands before. The 7th album was simply not the most exciting record of the band. The only new studio album in the past 10 years. I didn't expect much. It seemed that the band's best days were over, frankly speaking, but Laden Crown turned out to be pretty cool. The title track opens the album with a doomy, ritualistic feel. Devil on Highway 9 is one of my favorite tracks, fast and groovy. Danzig shot a great video in stylish black and white for Last Ride, which is among the best songs of the album too. Truth be spoken, occasionally you notice Glenn's voice is not as powerful as it used to be. His performance on songs like Blackness Falls or Pull the Sun seems a little tired. They might have been awesome with the energy he mustered 25 years earlier. Alas, this was 2017 for you. Normally I don't include compilations in my album rankings, but this is an album's worth of new, respectively unreleased studio tracks. By average, The Lost Tracks features about 3 outtakes from each album session from the 8 LPs Danzig had released until then. You could expect that the sound jumps a lot due to the nature of the songs coming from a period over 20 years, but that is not the case. You see, they were not sitting finished on a shelf, but oftentimes existed only incomplete, so new guitars, vocals or whatever had to be recorded and a new mix done to include them on the Lost Tracks, and this helped to achieve a more consistent sound quality, almost as round as a regular album. The first disc is awesome. The second disc has a few weaker tracks. Cat People, for example, a cover of David Bowie's Putting Out Fire from the movie soundtrack Cat People, was such a sensitive tune in the original, whereas the Danzig version is too much in your face. On Circle of Snakes, the menacing Danzig atmosphere is there again in songs like Skull Forest and My Darkness. I like Netherbound and A Thousand Devils Reign, where Tommy Victor gives us some monumental guitar riffing. No major complaints. Circle of Snakes deserves a place in the middle of the ranking. After the experimental fifth album, Black Acid Evil, Glenn must have received the fans' message that he was moving too far away from the most successful period of his band, and he took one step back. Satan's Child is a very enjoyable release, which, similar to the fourth album, uses industrial influences but with groovier songs. The combination felt a lot more natural than the sterile predecessor. My favorite tracks are the more aggressive tunes here, like Satan's Child and Five Finger Crawl. In quite a few bands I already ranked, I found this dichotomy between the classics and the rest. For example, Metallica or Metal Church, whose early albums felt impossible to exceed later. Therefore, my top 4 of Danzig will not be a big surprise. Nevertheless, they still are most enjoyable to rediscover. Danzig 4 became a lot more experimental than before in tracks like Sadistical. Bringer of Death was probably his most brutal song ever. It was a climax also in the gigs they played for this album. I Don't Mind the Pain was a great single, and Until You Call on the Dark is also one of my faves. Even if you knew the previous releases of his bands Misfits and Sylvain, the Danzig debut came as a total surprise. His new band, new by name but actually a continuation from the last Sylvain lineup, gave us a dark metal release with a Spartanic production by Rick Rubin, drums, guitar, bass, nothing fancy but hauntingly intense. Mother, Am I Demon and Twist of Cain remained some of the best Danzig songs ever. The punching rhythm of this album is rather suggestive sometimes, and so are some of the lyrics, like She Rides. I remember in the early 90s there was a girl with curly brown hair named Steffi who helped me with an experiment to verify whether the album can be used for the purposes that Glenn probably wrote it for, and the answer was a definite yes. Glenn didn't leave much to imagination anyway, as he put out a stunning black and white video cassette to accompany the album. Clips like Am I Demon and Mother definitely did their share to promote his band. He knew well that rock and roll is more fun with a bit of bad reputation. "35 years later, and I still remember the first time I heard this album. My buddy René, who passed away since, managed to get his hands on a copy before I did, and we listened to it at his place, awestruck. How to exceed a brilliant debut album? By pushing the boundaries a bit more. Then try some totally stripped down acoustic tracks like I'm the One, opposed to powerful rockers like the opening Long Way Back from Hell and Snakes of Christ. Again, no less than 4 videos accompanied the album, including Killer Wolf, I'm the One and Her Black Wings. But I like Devil's Plaything best because it begins so innocently quiet and then draws you more and more to the dark side. First of all, the tour for How the Gods Kill was the best I ever witnessed, with a young band called White Zombie for support. Danzig rocked. Nice tickets they had back in the early 90s. Nowadays, they just send a QR code to your phone. Modern times suck. Anyway, in 1992, Danzig reached their peak in my opinion. My favorite video from the album is Bodies, shot in one take because it shows how fluently the band performed and their talents merged. I couldn't name one weak song on the LP. It kills indeed, from the groovy Dirty Black Summer to the intense Anything, from the powerful opener Godless to the final When the Dying Calls. Thanks for listening.